10 or 15 of them, and they will be able to take down bigger animals. And so you don't really see wolves around the city. They don't like being around humans, but they're up north of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, where there's a lot of forests. The wolves live up in those areas. Now we have what is called a bald eagle, and that's the symbol of the United States is a bald eagle. And bald eagles tend to live along waterways. So the Mississippi River that runs from Minnesota all the way down to Texas is a long river with a lot of fish in it. And so eagles live around water so that they can fish, because the fish, like the eagle catching the fish here, that's their food. They really like having fish. They can also survive on smaller animals like rabbits and mice and rats, but eagles tend to prefer fish if they can have it. And so like along the Mississippi River, like I've driven along the Mississippi River before and seen many eagles, like 10 or 15 along in just a few short miles or kilometers, excuse me. And so eagles are very common, particularly around water. Now this is called a bison or a buffalo, and they're very big. They're bigger than a cow, but they're not very common. In fact, most bison live more west in South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, but we do have some bison in Minnesota, and they're very big, and they don't mind the cold. So even though it can get very cold out, bison that they don't have a difficult time with the cold weather because they have very thick skin and fur. And then we have moose, and moose are huge animals. So the male is on the left, and it has the antlers like a deer has male deers have antlers. And then on the right is a cow or a female moose with some of her young. Now I think the female moose has a tracking collar. So they must put that on her to see where she roams and where she lives. But the male moose can be very big. It can be 10 feet tall at the shoulder, so over 3 meters tall, and it can weigh over 2,000 pounds or 1,000 kilograms. So it is a very big animal, and humans need to be people need to be very careful around moose, because moose will attack you and step on you and kill you if you get too close to them. But they're very big and beautiful animals, and there's many of them up in northern Minnesota. Now we also have bears. So the one on the left is an adult black bear, and then the two on the right are small cub brown bears. And bears can be very big. They're not as big as a moose, but they're still very big, and they can be very dangerous. So we try not to be in contact with bears. Like if we're going on a hike in the woods, we might see a bear in a distance, and we will be careful not to get close to them. But usually bears don't bother people, and if people don't bother bears, there's usually not a problem with it. And we do not have polar bears. So the very large white polar bears actually are way up in Alaska and northern Canada. But here in Minnesota, we do not have polar bears, but we have black bears and brown bears. And then here's what's called a mountain lion. It's like almost like an African lion, but about half the size. It's still big. It's still about 100 kilograms or over 200 pounds. And it still could kill a human, but they tend to be deep in the woods. We rarely see them. And, we really respect if we see one, we're very careful. So that's a large cat or animal that can be very aggressive, and you have to be very careful around them. So those are some common animals in Minnesota. And we have about 5 minutes. So if each of you can just share for a minute or two about what you learned or what you thought was interesting about the animals in Minnesota. And Natalia, you're first up on my screen, so why don't you go ahead and share first what you thought was interesting.
I found those are a bit interesting, and can I ask a couple of questions?
Mhm.
What's the
Yes.
difference between like chipmunk and squirrel?
So a squirrel is a little larger, and it's got a very big tail. And so they're a little bit bigger animals. A chipmunk's pretty small. It's only about the size of your hand, and it does not have a very big tail. It has more of a tail like a mouse or a rat, but a little bit fluffier. Um, and so they're very similar. They collect nuts. They can live outside in the winter. They just have to burrow down in the ground. They're similar animals, but one is bigger and one is smaller.
Thank you, sir.
Did you have another question?
Yes, but I forgot.
Okay. So what besides the chipmunks and the squirrels, were there any other animals you thought were interesting or you liked?
Yes, patients. I
Oh,
heard that they're almost extinct, but the government like protect it.
so they're now not extinct or not on the verge of extinction, but the big herds with a lot of bison, they're more out west in South Dakota and North Dakota. So we don't have many here in Minnesota. All right, thank you very much, Natalia. Alex, did you have any thoughts or questions about the animals, wildlife in Minnesota?